The Awesome Adventures of Poppy and Amelia, Chapter 1. Poppy raced down the corridor. She was late for history, and Class 7C were already in the classroom, laughing, chatting, sending text, and making loud burping noises, while Mr. Harrison, the supply teacher, was trying to take the register. As Poppy was halfway through the door, she turned and glared at her. Clicking his fingers, he pointed and said, "Poppy Barrington, get out and don't let me see you for the rest of the day." "That's not fair, sir. Poppy hasn't done anything," Amelia, her best friend, protested. "If you're going to question my decisions, you can go too." As Amelia stood up, the rest of the class shouted and booed. "Silence, you horrible little toads." Mr. Harrison clicked his fingers once again, and in a single moment he was the only person in the room. There was not one pupil to be seen. In their place, there were 28 large brown wrinkled toads. "That's more like it," Mr. Harrison said. The toad that was Amelia gave a terrified croak and hopped into the corridor to sit near Poppy's foot. "It's okay, I'll look after you." Poppy stretched out her hand to pick up the toad. The toad turned its head in her direction, but it didn't move. "Oh no," Poppy gasped. She couldn't see her fingers, or her hands, or any part of her. "I'm invisible. Mr. Harrison must have done it when he pointed at me." In the classroom, the toads were stretching their limbs. Their skins were growing smoother, their bodies longer and thinner, and soon 7C were back to normal, except that no one was talking or making a noise. "That's all right then. The magic doesn't last very long." Poppy checked her hands, but she still couldn't see herself. "He's forgotten us, Amelia. But don't worry, I'll remind him." Poppy opened the door a crack. "Please, sir," she began. "Who said that?" Mr. Harrison glared at the class. "Didn't I say you were to sit in silence for the rest of the lesson?" "It's me, Poppy, and I'm still invisible, and Amelia is—" "Silence!" He slid his finger across his lips. Poppy retreated as fast as she could, but she was not quick enough. Mr. Harrison had taken her voice away. When she tried to speak, not a sound came out of her mouth. Out in the corridor, Poppy put her backpack on the ground, unzipped it, and very gently pushed Amelia towards it until she disappeared inside. Then they waited till the end of the lesson, when Poppy was sure Mr. Harrison would remove the spell before they could go home. But after the bell rang, 7C piled out of the room, and he walked straight past without a word. "You can't leave us like this," Poppy thought, and chased after him, because if she didn't reach him before she left school, then they might never be changed back. Amelia would remain a toad, and she would be invisible forever. Since neither of them could speak, their parents would think they'd gone missing, and nobody would ever know what had really happened. Poppy ran to the teacher's car park. She had one last chance to put everything right, but when she reached it, Mr. Harrison was driving out of the gates. Poppy grabbed her bike from the bike shed and took a shortcut out of the road. She was just in time to see his little yellow car disappearing around the corner and into the high street. Pedalling furiously, she raced down the street, swerving in and out of the traffic. Thrown from side to side in the backpack, Amelia croaked loudly. People on the pavement stopped and pointed. Drivers sounded their horns and stared in disbelief as the bike with its invisible rider tore past. Only Mr. Harrison kept looking straight ahead. At the end of the high street, he turned left. Poppy skidded around the bend and followed the car's tail lights until, very suddenly and unexpectedly, they disappeared. She couldn't see where they had gone because the houses in the Burnham Avenue were hidden behind the thick hedges and tall trees. Poppy wasn't going to give up. If she had to, she'd search every house in the road. Jumping off her bike, she started back the way she'd come and saw a pair of black iron gates she hadn't noticed before. They were open, and beyond them was a yellow car. It was parked in front of a rambling cottage that had steep roof windows like startled eyes and a veranda that ran all the way round the back. Propping her bike up against the hedge, Poppy ran up the steps into the front door and knocked. Then there was a long, long pause. Then very, very slowly, the door began to open. If you would like to hear the rest of Poppy and Amelia, you can find it at all good bookshops or Amazon. Thank you for listening.